So my very first day as a supervisor at a new property, I'd been doing it for a while. I get called to a 2-5 no limit game. And the reason I get called there is because this guy has just called this woman the C word. And I'm just like, day one, really? So I go up there and I pull the guy off the table because I'm not handling this on the table. I pull him into a separate room and the shift manager comes flying in behind me. And so the two of us are in there and I'm talking to him and he's like, listen, I'm a good guy. Everybody loves me here. And I stop him and I tell him, this is my very first day at this new job. I've never in 7 years as a supervisor heard somebody call someone else the C word at a table. And you're trying to tell me that you're a good guy. I'm going to have to see how this goes from here on out. And I told him, like, I can tell my shift manager doesn't want me to kick you out, but normally you're gone.
Welcome back to Vegas Aces live stream. My name is Heather Ferris and I'll be your host for today. And we are joined with our special guest, Marc from True Poker Dealer. Marc, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little more about yourself and where they can find you?
Love to introduce myself. So I am Marc Shumsker. You can find me on YouTube on True Poker Dealer. I help teach people how to deal poker, and I do have a full course where you can learn right through YouTube how to deal poker just by joining my channel. And it's been really fun for years. I think I've been on there about the same time as Heather since roughly 2012. I think she's got me notched by a little bit. It's always going to bug me. But yeah, that's me, True Poker Dealer. I have your questions answered for poker, and I'm very excited about today. And thank you, as always, Heather, for having me come on here and for joining my live streams too.
Oh, my pleasure. I always love it when we could sit here and interact and talk and like share stories and everything. It's always so much fun having you around.
Thank you. Even though I tease you?
Oh yeah, you're totally good. Now, today we are going to be talking about 5 horribly worded poker rules that confuse everyone. And I'm really excited about this. I've really been looking forward to this. Now, if you guys have any questions, if you guys have any comments, anything like that, please put it in the chat and we will answer those at the very end of this video. And before we get started, I just want to remind you to subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that way you're always notified of our latest videos and live streams. And of course, if you're brand new to this channel and this is your first time here, my name is Heather Ferris with Vegas Aces, and I am an adjunct professor at UNLV, founder of Vegas Aces, content creator, consultant, and I've been involved with the casino industry for over 15 years. If you guys don't know, one of the reasons why I helped create Vegas Aces is for our community, how we give back to the community. And we do so by offering a free dealing trade school where we can help place dealers at no cost. Okay, so let's get this party started. Marc, what is number 1?
So I actually am going to go in reverse order. Number 1 is the juiciest. So I'm starting with number 5 right now. And this is stuff, all of these are things that confuse players and dealers. Everybody gets confused by this. So some of you are familiar with what these are, right? This is a miss big blind button and a miss little blind button. And I'm going to challenge you, Heather, on every single one of these because I want to know if you know the answer, okay?
Oh, goodness.
Now, if somebody has missed both of their blinds, do they get both buttons or just one? Do you know?
If they miss both of their blinds, do they get both buttons or just one? If memory serves me correctly, I think they get both of them and they have to pay both the big blind and the little blind.
So you're sort of correct. They get one of the buttons, but they do have to pay both blinds. Okay, they pay a big blind and they pay a dead small blind that goes to the center of the table when they come back, or they can just come for their big blind and only pay a big blind. And the term that we use that's confusing here is post. You have to post. So what happens is there's a lot of scenarios where a player will miss both of their blinds as the hands get dealt out and the button goes around the table and they miss their blinds. However, if they miss a small blind, we also use the term post, and they're just posting a dead small. And there's another scenario where if a player moves away from the big blind, say that they want to go to a different seat, they were about to be the big blind, and they move a few seats down, more than 3, well, we actually give them a missed big blind button for that as well. And because we never give a big and small blind in this industry, it's very confusing, because when we tell that player to post in order for them to play, they have to only post a big blind. There's no dead small. And in that case, when a new dealer gets to the table, they see one of these, they tell a player they have to post. I have seen many arguments about what that actually means in that scenario. And that was number 5.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, I think we're ready to move on to number 4. Really excited to hear about this. Thank you again for doing this. This is just so awesome and such a great topic, and really do appreciate this.
Well, of course, and I'm happy to come on and say, I get to challenge you, and you say yes. So that part's fun, although we know that you're not expected to know poker quite the same. So the next one, I'm going to ask you, do you know what the term dead hand means?
Dead hand is when the player mucks their hand and it's no longer in play, and that's a dead hand.
So there's a variation to what you said. So first of all, any hand that's dead is when one player no longer can use that hand. A lot of people, when they create a misdeal, so when the dealer deals out incorrectly, they say misdeal, bring them back. Sometimes they accidentally say dead hand, right? Because it's just a logical term that people use. What a dead hand is anytime one individual hand is killed. And so what'll happen is, I've seen this plenty of times in a cash game. This cannot happen in tournament, but in a cash game, a dealer will deal every single player in, and then they'll look over and realize that they dealt an extra hand in, an extra 2 cards in Texas Hold'em. Those 2 cards are a dead hand. And what'll happen is, I've seen this over and over again. Say a supervisor comes to the table to make a ruling, or the dealer knows to do it. They say, this is a dead hand. I always see players toss their cards in because they've heard dead hand for misdeal, and they think, because the wording of this rule is so terrible, and the wording of what dead hand means is, they think that all hands are dead and the entire hand is dead. Because as we know in poker, the word hand means the collective group of all the hands dealt out, and it also means an individual hand, and that confuses people a lot. So a dead hand is one player's hand, or an extra 2 cards, or an Omaha 4 cards that was dealt to a seat.
Oh, and
not everybody.
When they do this, when they check it in, it's not like they can be like, oh, my mistake, I want them back. You know, I actually want to play.
I've seen players that had money in front of them for some reason, and they throw their cards in, they're in the muck, and you can't kill everyone else's cards. So you're just sort of SOL.
Oh man, that's so bad.
Misdeal is when you toss them all in, misdeal. And if you're a dealer, do not say dead hand when it's a misdeal. You'll confuse everybody further.
And then you'll make everyone mad at you.
Yes, and that's always a great feeling.
Now, before we go on to number 3, because I am so excited to hear all of these, we have a quick word from our sponsor, but we will be right back right after these messages. And for our viewers out there, if you guys like this video and you want to help support Vegas Aces, then please do so by tipping your dealer. Tipping your dealer is easy, and you can do so now with Super Chat. Super Chat is a way YouTube allows you to tip me any amount you want. So you could tip your dealer too, but yeah. Go ahead, give it a try, or show your support by becoming a member of our Patreon page. We have several different levels and rewards for you to choose from. Any membership level counts, even $1, so please go join today. Also, if you guys have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please put them in the chat and we will answer them at the end of this video. Okay, so Mark, what is number 3?
So number 3, I am going to challenge you with this one because that's my favorite. It is the term closest to the button when speaking about who gets the extra chip in a chopped pot. So let me ask you, what does closest to the button mean? Because that is the terminology that is used everywhere in poker. People say closest to the button, closest to the button.
I'm going to have to guess with this one. If they're saying close to the button, I would assume they're talking about the big blind.
That's a very good guess. And listen, this is a setup, right? This stuff is impossible to know what it means just from the terminology. And then that's why all these adamant poker players think that they know what it actually means and they go super hard with their thought, right? And actually, this is one of the ones that causes home game dealers the most trouble because they have to figure out what it is. So basically, if you have two players that have the exact same strength hand and it's at the showdown and they both show their hand, you have to figure out if you've got an odd number of chips, someone's got to get the extra one. Otherwise, you have to stop everything and go home, right? So you might as well have a rule for this. Well, we say closest to the button gets it. And what that actually means, it doesn't have anything to do with that exact hand. It's saying in the future, the person who is going to get the button next out of everybody that's in the hand is going to get the extra chip. So if you're in the small blind position, you are going to get the button in the next hand. That makes you closest to the button. I prefer to use terminology that's different than that when I teach this. I prefer to use terminology first to act, and that implies who would have acted first on the flop, turn, and river. And that is who I say gets the extra chip. It's the same thing. It's just less confusing, right? So worst position, first to act is a better way to phrase it. But closest to the button has made its way through poker for years and years, probably decades, and confused people, especially at home.
Well, that's really good to know. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Is number 4 similar to that, or is it something, or number 2? Is number 2 similar to that, or is it something totally different?
It's not something at the, well, actually it is something at the showdown. I think it's pretty different though, but it's still poker.
So how about number 2?
All right, number 2, what does show one, show all mean?
Oh, aren't you talking about the cards? So if you show your cards, you have to show everybody your cards. You can't just show like one person your card.
So that is true. And let me ask you this. What happens if you decide to show one of your 2 cards or 2 of your 4 cards? Do you have to show all of your cards?
Good question. I would have to say no, because I've seen people where they just flip over the one card and they don't flip over both of them. It seems to like be that they get away with it.
So different circles interpret this differently. However, professionals in casinos all get this the same, okay? Show one, show all is only referring to the rule that you first said, and you were correct about it, and I'm very happy to say that, where if you show one player or even a spectator or the dealer, if you show them your cards, then you do have to show everybody. It is show one person, show all people. It is not show one card, show all cards. And I have seen fights happen over this misunderstanding where entire poker rooms have decided to take on this show one card, show all cards rule because of confusion and not wanting to deal with the alpha players at the table, where the people that were running the room were just sort of like, I'm not 100% sure myself. And they seem pretty confident. It happens sometimes, but almost everywhere it's consistent. If you show one person your cards, you do have to show everybody. That being said, and this is just a little nugget, it's not about terminology, it's upon request unless you showed somebody that actually was in the hand. So if you show a spectator and you end up mucking your hands, or you show someone that does not have cards and you end up mucking your hand, then if the dealer gets asked to show, you do have to show everybody, but it's not automatic. The dealer only does it when the player, it's even if someone could potentially have seen it. If someone potentially could have seen it that was in the hand and they had cards, and everybody's got to see it. And there's rules around that as well.
Wow. So if I'm a player on a poker game and one of the other players just quickly shows like his wife or something that's standing behind him the cards, then I could request to see the cards and they have to show them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the dealer might be the one to do it. And so as a dealer, if you ever get asked, hey, I'd like to see those cards that were just shown, I'm assuming it's going to be pretty obvious. You'll know that they were shown, right? If that happens, protect your muck, because if that player gets those cards face down into the muck, there's nothing you can do about it. So in that moment, whenever you get requested, can I see those cards, or whatever the words are that another player at the table says, protect your muck by putting your hand directly on top of it so that no cards can get in there, and then you'll be able to do that. And at the showdown, if it's a live hand, it can get a little bit complicated. So you want to be careful that you understand those specific rules, and it would take a while to go into all of that. I'll say this, okay? I have been at the table as both a dealer and a supervisor. Let's say there's 3 players in at the showdown, okay? One of them tables a hand. Let's say they table a straight or something like that. Somebody else sees another player's cards, and someone's like, I want to see that hand. Well, is that hand live or not? They're at the showdown. That's the question, right? So there's a lot of rules that are mixed into this dynamic as well. And they're pretty tricky. And as a dealer, you usually just get a floor involved. But as a supervisor, you have to know. But it can be pretty rough.
So as a dealer, if nobody says anything, then do you still have to show the cards, or is it just if someone requests it?
So if the player shows like his wife behind him and nobody says anything, no, you don't. And that probably happens. Let me see. I played poker yesterday for like 3 hours, and it happened 4 times and nobody said anything. It's tough to speak up and ask to see the cards, because you piss people off sometimes, but at the same time, they're putting themselves at risk for it. It's like they're asking for it. So if you got the kahunas to ask, do it, because it's advantage, right? You get to see what they had, and other people shouldn't. It shouldn't be that just some people get to see and some don't.
I agree. But, and besides, poker's all about reading people, and that's a great way to find out how they were acting.
Yeah, and as a poker player, honestly, if you're choosing to show your hand to someone, whether they're in the game or not, you are putting yourself at risk. If you have cards and you have shown someone else throughout the hand, and then 2 minutes later in the hand, that person who's seen them gives you any type of advice, whether they realize they're giving it to you, you might end up getting your hand killed. It's never a good idea to show your cards, in my personal opinion, because that's one of the few consistent ways to get your hand killed.
Very good advice.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so before we move on to number 1, we have one more word from our sponsor. So we're going to quickly do these commercials, and then we will be right back. If you guys like this video and you want to help support Vegas Aces, then one of the ways you could do so is by going to vegas-aces.com and clicking on one of our affiliate banners. When you sign up for an account through an affiliate link, our site gets a small commission. If you ever have any problems or disputes, email me at heather@vegas-aces.com and we will help you through it. Okay, back to the show. Okay, so what is number 1?
Number 1. All right. So have you ever had it happen where you were playing poker and it was your turn, and the person who goes after you folded or bet or something like that, and you're just like, whoa? In that scenario, there's a set of rules in poker that determine what happens next. Okay, so if it's my turn and the player to my left, let's say it's 5 to call and I'm playing 2-5 no limit. 5 to call to me, I'm thinking about what I want to do, and the player to my left raises. All right. In that case, I speak up and say, hey, it's my turn. Okay. So now there's a rule that says if the action changes, then that player can take back their $20. However, if the action does not change, then that money must stay in there. And I ask you, Heather, do you know what that is referring to?
Oh, man. No.
So this one's a bit tricky. The phrasing, if the action doesn't change, seems to make it sound like if anything changes, then the money can come back, and if nothing changes, then it doesn't. But what happens if I call $5? Is the action changing in that point? It seems like it is. Now there's another player that's put money in the pot. What if I fold? Well, now there's less people in the hand. But what it's actually saying is, if the action changes, is saying if the amount to call that was previously in place changes. That's what they mean by action. It's a terrible word choice for that, because I've seen floors that have been confused with this that end up making the wrong ruling because they don't understand that specific phrasing. So what I suggest that people learn when they think about this particular rule is using the phrasing, the amount to call. If the amount to call does not change, then that player's $20 bet must remain. But if the amount to call does change, say that I decide to raise, well, now the player that put in $20 is allowed to take that $20 back. They can fold instead without losing anything. They can call if they want, or they can raise. They get all of their options available to them in that case.
Okay, so calling and folding, it's not that. Only when you're raising is that the change part of it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's only if in that case. And it's confused people for years. And I'm sort of on a mission to fix these things because it doesn't need to be this way. It just doesn't.
Right? Seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you are on that mission too, because your website, your channel, your training and everything, it really does help. And it helps new poker dealers learn this trade. And just, I know you said it before, but just one more time, where can people find you again if they want to, say, take one of your courses or check out your videos or anything like that?
Oh, I appreciate that. So you can see True Poker Dealer is what it says right here. And it's just that right there, True Poker Dealer. You plug that into YouTube, you can find me there, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that'll help you learn to become a poker dealer in so many different ways, including some live streams, a couple of them with Heather. So yeah, I'm always making stuff. I've got my super content that's like really focused on teaching people how to deal, and I've also got the more casual interviews. I've interviewed some poker managers. I've interviewed magicians, like all this stuff that's been really fun. So
that was a really interesting one. I enjoyed watching that one with the magician and everything. Yeah, he's talking about sleight of hand. I mean, the whole thing, it was just an hour of goodness. It might have been more than an hour. Either way, it was all goodness. It went really, really fast.
I actually brought him back, and I appreciate that very much. I brought him back, and he showed me how to do it live, and I was almost getting it right, which is a little bit scary. Yeah. But I don't think I could fool people live. There's like, I use the less sophisticated one that would fool cameras, not surveillance cameras, like just live stream cameras. But anyway, I felt like a BA. You know?
Well, all 5 of those rules that you gave are just freaking fantastic. And I wish we had more that we could talk about. You just are so full of information and everything. Can I request an encore with one of them? Like, just, can we, I don't know, slip another one?
I do have 2 honorable mentions that I put there as I was trying to brainstorm, if that's something that you'd like me to share.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Okay, well, the first honorable mention is the phrasing that I'm sure you've heard before if you know poker: verbal is binding. So what do you take that to mean?
Whatever says goes.
It's very, very simple and very, very clear, right? So it takes it to the extent that if a player pushes out half of their stack, say they have $200, they push out a stack of red, it's $100. And while they're pushing it out, at the same exact time, they say, all in. Well, they have no choice but to go all in. But the question is, what if they say, all of my children? In that case, they did say something verbal that could be interpreted to have meaning, but I've had to make floor rulings like this. Somebody said, I think, all of my family, and they put in one stack, and then they tried to put the other stack in afterwards. And I had to go to the table and make a ruling where I said, look, I understand that verbal is binding, which is what they were just like, it's verbal is binding, verbal is binding. I understand that that's what you're saying, but I have to have something to bind it to. that particular terminology does not actually mean anything in poker. So your bet is going to be your physical action in that case.
Well, I mean, you could be betting your kids. You could be like, okay, I'm going to put my second child up, my third child up. They're really good at working. You know, if you win them, they'll like work for you and everything. Maybe I'll put my wife up there too. I don't know.
Like, I want to play in your home game. Please. I will get out of there.
The dog, all in.
I'll be like, all right, here's the editing I need done from all of you. I hate to say it, but I actually considered asking my 8-year-old to help me with editing. I mean, he likes doing stuff like that. But I'm not betting him. But yeah, there's also a scenario. You're making me laugh here. There's also a scenario too where what happens if you're playing in a tournament and the blinds are, say, 400, 800, and you say 5. Does that mean 500? Does that mean 5,000? You know, it's an interesting dynamic. In that case, the verbal part from what you did that is binding is unclear, and the TDA has come up with rules that determine what that actual answer is. Yeah, and they had to create extra rules to do it.
It could mean 5 kids. You never know.
I definitely want to play at your game, although I don't think you have 5 kids to bet.
No.
Fascinating. And I do have one more as well, if you'd like to hear it.
I'd love to.
It's not going to be as funny as this one, but so have you ever heard the term substantial action before?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's like a whale.
Interesting. Well, there's another term, significant action. Have you heard that term?
Probably what I'm thinking of.
So it's possible that you have a specific term you're thinking of, but it doesn't sound like it's necessarily in this ballpark. So substantial action is referring to what happens if there's an error that occurs and nobody notices it until later in the hand, and then somebody says, hey, this was incorrect, this was wrong. You know, let's say that, for example, a player did not do anything on the flop. So it's $20 bet, call, another player doesn't do anything, the dealer brings the turn, you know, and then a person bets. The question is, what do you do, right? So there's this rule called substantial action where you determine whether or not there was substantial action to see whether or not the card comes back and it was a premature turn, etc. And then my next question, though, is what is significant action? And this is something that confuses people all the time. So the answer is significant action is the same thing as substantial action. And it's very confusing that there are two terms that are used frequently to mean the exact same thing. And I've had a conversation with a supervisor that was making a ruling in a room that I was also supervising in, where they tried to tell me in the beginning half of the sentence that substantial action is this, and in the second half of the sentence that there's significant action. And I'm looking at them like, really, in the same exact conversation, in the same sentence, you're going to use both terms with people listening to what you're trying to say? But that is something that happens in the industry a lot, where these two things, people hear, oh, well, this time he said substantial, this time he said significant, like, what do I do? And it's just one of those things that are confusing to people. They're the same.
That's really, really good to know. That really clears it up. And it's just, thank you so much for all the content you brought to this and everything. Like, that's just really awesome that we were able to talk about this, especially when you hear these terms on the table and you're just like, I'm not sure. Now we have this video. Now we could be sure. This is awesome.
You can show this to all of these freaking people that I've been dealing with for all this time so that I don't have to deal with it anymore. But ultimately, we're trying to make gaming better. I mean, I know you're on the same mission, so.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so if you guys are watching, if you have any questions at all for me or Mark, please put them in the chat. Speak now or forever hold your peace. We are going to do a quick commercial, and then we are going to come back and dive through all of your comments and questions and suggestions and everything like that. So be back in a second. Just a quick reminder, Vegas Aces is supported by viewers like you. Donations make it possible for us to bring you all of these videos for free. If you feel that this video was worth more than $0, please donate the amount you feel it's worth by clicking the link in the description below. Okay, so let's go back and do your questions. Okay, so we got a couple people in the chat, not too much chatter today. I don't really see too many questions, just one, maybe two. Thomas wanted to say hi, so hello. And same with Dane, good to see you guys. We do have a question from Thomas. Can you double straddle the blinds?
So that is a good question, and that's going to end up being game specific. There are a lot of games, and you can actually see this on the TCH live stream on YouTube, which I personally enjoy. They're out of Texas, Austin. They do live streams. They have this all the time where under the gun straddles, and then once under the gun puts their money in, the next player straddles for double the amount. Then the next player straddles for double the amount. They even triple and quadruple. And sometimes in this 5-10 game that they do, you'll see the blinds. It's the straddles for 20, then the next straddles for 40, the next one's for 80, the next one's for 160 before the flop. They just put it in blind. So the answer is in a lot of games you can. Generally speaking, it's only allowed when the under the gun player straddles. And in games that like to have double straddles allowed, they often will not allow a straddle from any other position than under the gun in order to make this work properly.
Okay. When you do that, could you just keep going, or is there a cap or a max?
You know, I've never seen it make its way all the way through the button because of how high that would get. Like if you're playing 9-handed, if you think about it, the first one's 20. The second one is going to be 40, then 80, then 160, and that's middle position. Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about that, honestly. I think technically you can keep going though, but everybody would just be all in at that point if you went all the way around the blinds.
All in.
Right.
Okay, so our next question comes from Dane. What should be done if a player bets out of turn?
So that's a great question, and it's related to the action out of turn if the action doesn't change rule that we spoke about. So if a player bets out of turn, as a dealer, the first thing that you do is you almost obnoxiously throw your hand up to the player who is after them, because poker players have this habit, right? Well, it's not like this. Poker players have this habit of acting after the person in front of them. You cannot fault them for that. And they might not realize that somebody was skipped because it's their cue that they look for when the player that's next to them acts. So what you do as a dealer is you make sure that you stop that. So let's say the player in seat number 4 is next. You sort of put your, let me put my hand in the camera.
You
put
show
your hand
them the hand.
them, and you clearly, you make them talk to the hand, right? No, you show them very clearly actions over here. So one hand is going to hold up. The other one's going to go down. Or if you can't do that and say you got the deck in your hand, you say hold up with this hand and you say actions over here. Hold up, actions over here. You just have to be super clear about it. And this is one of the reasons why, as a dealer, I teach always follow the action as the very first and foremost thing. Because if you don't follow the action, you may think that somebody checked, say that it's on the flop, the first player hasn't done anything, the second player acts. You might literally look over if you haven't been paying attention and just assume, oh, the second player acted, so the first one must have checked, and you're going to be wrong sometimes. That's why number one priority as a dealer is follow the action / make sure all the dollar amounts are correct.
Yep, and drink coffee so you don't fall asleep on the table.
Yeah, I like that story from last time very much.
Oh, that is awesome. Is there anything else you want to tell the audience before we get going?
Just how much I appreciate you, Heather. You're always like grinding away on here, giving people value, teaching people, having fun with them. It's just such a pleasure to know you, and always happy to come and participate. So
it's such a pleasure to know you too. I always have fun when you come on these the channel and do these and everything. And one more time, because I know people haven't heard it enough yet, where can people find you? Website, YouTube channel, and courses?
So website, truepokerdealer.com. YouTube channel is True Poker Dealer on YouTube. You can just search it right in there. And you can be one of my 16,000 subscribers. I'd love it. And I do have a course on YouTube where you can learn to deal start to finish poker. Just join my channel if you want to be a part of it. I have helped teach thousands of dealers at this point to be poker dealers all around the world. And it's just been an unbelievable journey that I'm so appreciative of. And I thank you for allowing me to say all that.
My pleasure. And I hope we can have you back again, because it's always great hearing you.
Thanks.
So cool. Okay, you guys, that's it. That does it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please join us on our next live stream. We live stream every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, this is Heather Ferris with Vegas Aces, reminding you that education can change the world. Have a good one.